going to join us for our retreat December 13th at 8:30, and it'll be open to the public, but she does a great little intro to local economies and what we can do as a elected body, council can do, and staff can do to help improve the economy in small town Arizona. Her name just escaped me, Mayor? Kimber Lanning from Local First. I'm looking forward to hearing from her. I also got to meet some people from the Verde Valley Canyon Railroad, and they reminded us that their holiday trips start December 6th. So if you haven't booked a trip on that, please be sure to do that. Some big announcements I sent out to council. The first I want to talk about is we have now been designated a International Dark Sky Community. So thank you to the staff and the team that made that happen. Yes, it's a pretty big deal. So that'll be going up on our website, and we have another announcement we'll announce at the next meeting. We're waiting for official notice. Also, on Monday, next Monday, the 25th, from 3 to 5, I'm apparently going to be on some fire truck ladder for Flying High Turkey Drive. So the Old Town Mission has asked me to help with their turkey drive, and I'll be up there. Thank you, Chief, back there, for allowing the Old Town Mission to have this fundraiser for their Thanksgiving. Yeah, me too. Me too. I may be closer to the ground than I had planned, but there is a ladder and there is a truck, so we'll see how high we get. The 65th Annual Christmas Parade is Saturday, December 7th, starts at 11. And then that same day from 3 to 8 is the Old Town Chocolate Walk. Make sure you get tickets ahead of time. The Friday night event is already sold out, so be sure you get online or stop by the chamber to get your tickets.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. We have a presentation this evening from FIRSTNET, Nationwide Wireless Broadband Network for First Responders, and Chief Gazelle is going to be making this presentation. You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. You know me well. You're giving me time limits. That's good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I mean, you have 2 minutes to get the computer set up.
I'm out of time. Thank you very much. All righty. So tonight we just want to take a couple minutes and explain some new technology that is making its way across the United States and the state of Arizona. We'll be the first in Yavapai County to leverage this technology. And I'll roll down the bullets here to offer you a brief glimpse into what we call FIRSTNET. FIRSTNET driven out, it's a byproduct after 9/11. Certainly the tragic terrorist-driven incident in New York City illustrated or underscored the difficulties in law enforcement and public safety in general, police and fire and other public safety entities in communicating during emergency events. I can tell you on a regular basis and very much smaller scale across the United States, these issues happen every single day. If you've ever been to a concert and you've tried to push photos or video from your phone and send somebody a photo or video and, wow, I can't get out, this is pretty much exemplifies the problem that FIRSTNET is here to solve for us. So essentially what happened is the FCC had the 9/11 Commission, if you're familiar with that, and there were a number of recommendations of lessons learned from 9/11, and one of them was certainly to facilitate better communication between first responders. So essentially FIRSTNET has been described as an HOV lane for cellular communication. So to boil it down to its basic fundamentals, it creates what's called a priority preemption or public safety through the FIRSTNET avenue. So essentially if we were at a concert and you can't get out, public safety there on FIRSTNET can, right? So public safety would get priority through that line of communication, if that makes sense for you. It is a public-private partnership. This was essentially an RFP. AT&T is the service provider, which caused us, I'll be very blunt, we were concerned about AT&T's historical coverage. You see the heads shaking on the dais. and this has been no small undertaking for us. We've monitored this FirstNet's progression in the state of Arizona. There are other states that are, the coverage issues are absolutely not historical, and you wouldn't get that kind of reaction if you asked people in other states. In this state, you do, and they did from us. And there's no hard sell to, just so you're aware, to leverage FirstNet. This is something that we, in collaboration with our IT department, have been studying very closely. I happen to have a close colleague that works for the Department of Commerce, which is another federal agency that's facilitating the rollout of FirstNet. Many agencies in the Phoenix metro area are already on FirstNet, and others are in the process. Like I said, we will be the first in Yavapai County, which for technology, sometimes that's a little scary place to be. But I will tell you, with this one, we know the worst case scenario, and it's very, very, very much in our pain threshold, intolerable. So I've already touched on the priority preemption for voice and data. So essentially that's cell phone communications. It also rolls into our data, mobile data computers that our police and fire. This rollout is primarily for fire or for police in the beginning, but certainly those data cards that go in those computers, which is we're in a data-driven world. There's a lot of information that's moving back and forth. And quite frankly, a lot of this is geared to make frontline service providers like police officers and firefighters to make their job easier and more streamlined. So it also enhances beyond the HOV lane concept that I talked about. It also, there's some enhanced operability, there's some situational awareness pieces to it, and there's also an encrypted push to talk, which offers another conduit for officers to talk to each other, particularly in crisis situation. They can simply key it up just like they would a mic through their device and talk to an individual or a group. Just like you would send a group email, you could talk to them instantly, which provides some redundancy if there's other problems with other avenues of communication. They also offer through FirstNet deployables, so if you have a disaster or you're in recovery mode or a pre-planned event, they'll bring up additional cell towers, so we'll have additional capacity in the area, which is at no cost to our city to do that. So the coverage, again, just to wrap that one up, the coverage map, if you were to see AT&T's coverage from 2002, which is available online, we had the privilege of seeing the engineer's map and comparing it to our own data and research over comparing pretty exhaustive, I think it was over 166 days. We tested FirstNet and we had 100% coverage. The speeds on the last day that we communicated with FirstNet representatives were significantly greater than other carriers, just straight away without we're not talking about the HOV lane, just straight away service provision. So over this last year and a half, FirstNet has been building the infrastructure throughout Arizona. Part of their mission is to build up this ability to offer this type of robust emergency communication in rural areas, which we found very attractive, obviously, because much of northern Arizona fits that description. So the number of cell towers just in eastern Yavapai County around Cottonwood have increased significantly over the last year and a half, which is generally not something that the public would be aware of. So currently, how it works at the Cottonwood Police Department, historically we've had a number of what have been considered critical. They're primarily sworn members of our agency, have received cell stipends for their own private devices. This is the same policy that's carried out throughout the city for identified personnel. With the The police department, it presents some significant issues because you have police officers communicating through their personal devices, which are subject to subpoena in criminal or civil courts. We certainly don't want officers taking photographs of evidence on their personal phones and so forth. So this kind of became a de facto solution to that in that regard. As part of FirstNet, they are going to supply us with state-of-the-art devices that we will personally issue, that we will, as a department, we will issue to every sworn member and potentially down the road a couple of key civilian members as well. They don't look like your average iPhone, the ones we will issue. They have buttons on the side. They look more like a cross between a radio and a mobile phone. They're very hardened, very robust. These are all part of the package. We are able to issue this device to every sworn member and remain cost neutral when you look at the stipend that's currently applied to a small, I think, Jody, is 14, how many? About 14 or 15 employees now, and this will extend it to roughly 34 straight away for roughly the same cost, which is an amazing opportunity for us. There is no contract, so going back to if the sky falls and this does not work, which we have no indication that would be the case, it's simply an opt-out, and we're back to another private subscriber or private provider, I should say. And I'll conclude just real briefly. There's been a lot of federal money thrown into this. $40 billion is authorized through Congress to support and build out the FirstNet network. So a lot of this is happening at just breakneck speeds. The infrastructure enhancements, particularly in our area, just watching that and being in the front row seat over the last year and a half has been nothing short of remarkable. The private sector obviously moves they're much more nimble, and they move far faster than government. But this is a collaboration between the two. It's execution by private sector with support and guarantees by the federal government. So that's very rewarding, and it's been phenomenal to see that infrastructure expand in our area. And we look forward very much to leveraging this new technology. Some of you are wondering what the cost, and we did get this figure. The cost for the stipends currently is around $1,300 per month. So we're not breaking the bank, but because of the other issues that I talked about, and the fact that we're able to outfit our entire sworn component is something that we're very excited about. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Great. Do we have any questions for Chief Gazelle? I just have one. The infrastructure that they're putting in, that AT&T is putting in, will that infrastructure remain beyond the life of their contract?
Yes, and the life of FirstNet is almost in perpetuity. I mean, it's like don't quote me on the number of years, but I will probably be 6 feet under by the time that the contractual obligation is complete with AT&T.
Oh, so they have the contract indefinitely then to
Don't
run?
quote me. It's
Okay.
extended.
Okay.
But those were conversations that we had early on. Is what if this doesn't stick and you roll up, the shop? Is that going to happen? And this is with my contact with the feds, and their response was it's not going to happen.
Got it. Great.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, just to clarify, that's the federal contract. As the chief said, there's no local contract.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Thank you. Great.
Absolutely.
So just one quick, on the cost neutrality, that's devices and access to the service?
The devices, as I understand it, we confirmed this before this presentation, is what about the devices? And the devices, is my understanding that there is no cost for the device. Well, I'm sorry, it's 99 cents, correct? Correct. 99 cents per device. And there is no contractual obligation that if we decided to opt out in a year that we even give those back, which we certainly would. But
Win-win.
yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is call to the public, and this portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. Are there any folks here this evening that would like to address the council for an item that is not on the agenda? No? Okay. Then we'll go into the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of November 5th, 2019.
I will move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, Councilmember Matthews made the motion, Councilmember Nairn seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. And now is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda, considered in its normal sequence. So we have 3 items tonight on the consent agenda, and I'll read them out for you. Item 1 is professional services agreement with Off-Duty Management, Inc. for off-duty officers' employment services. Item 2 is acceptance of a trail easement from the Mesquite Hills Homeowners Association. Item 3 is a Fair Festival liquor license application submitted by Eric Glomsky, applicant for Page Springs Vineyards and Cellars, for an event scheduled for December 7th, 2019 at the Old Town Center for the Arts located at 633 North 5th Street. Is there an item that a council member would like to have pulled? Is there an item that a member of the public would like to have pulled? Okay, I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. And now we have new business, 2 items tonight. The following items are for council discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. And the first item tonight is a request for funding for a portion of the cost of a proposed valley-wide housing needs assessment.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Richard was going to help me with this presentation tonight. He's out, so you get me. So hopefully we can get through this. So we have just a quick presentation, and then be happy to entertain questions. So the background is, I believe Council knows that the mayor and I have been working on a task force in the Verde Valley on workforce. Of course, one of City Council's strategic plan, economic development, and if you talk to any employer in town, finding housing is a significant issue. As a matter of fact, the mayor, I, and Rudy met with the CAO of the hospital, Mr. Ron Haas, who's new in his role, but has been with the hospital for about 3 years, a former director of HR or vice president or something like that. And as we talked through some of the issues, when we talked about recruitment, he says he does not have a problem getting people here. They're doing some neat recruiting strategies, recruiting physicians and staff. One of the issues they have, though, is nurses, of course, and housing, finding a place for the nurses to live. And so as we talked through some of the ideas we had, he's very interested. But as another employer recently told me, if he could, he would hire 30 people today. There was a service owner that owns a service business in the community. I was at another meeting recently, and he said the same thing. If he could have the people and he had the places for them to live, he would hire 30 people in a day. So we clearly have the need for workers, and one of our biggest stumbling blocks in our community is the housing. So the mayor and I have been working with Yavapai County, Sedona, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Camp Verde, Jerome, and also Vivi Rio. Mary's in the audience here tonight, but also NACOG has been showing up to the meetings. I believe the Sedona Chamber of Commerce, I think she showed up at one of the meetings early on. And of course, Yavapai County, both supervisors have showed up periodically and are supportive of this. So as we've been struggling with what to do, one of the things that Sedona decided to do to take the lead on was do a needs assessment. Where are we at? Instead of blaming short-term rental or blaming long-term rentals or not enough housing or the cost of housing, let's actually do a real assessment of the situation that we currently have. And if you know Sedona, and you guys do, currently their housing solution is Cottonwood, or the county, or the 260 corridor. And so as a part of the study that they're paying for, and they're spending a significant amount of dollars to pay for it, will include a study of the housing situation up the 260 corridor, a little bit of Cottonwood, a little bit of Camp Verde, and of course significant portions of the county will be included in the study. So they offered the consultants at our request from the county and Cottonwood and Camp Verde and Clarkdale specifically, said, well, what if you did the in-depth study for all of our region, for the whole valley, and what would it cost? So they put together a proposal that's in your guys' packets for an additional $40,000. They would do the in-depth study for the whole valley. So what would we get if we didn't do anything? We'd get some information, some generalities, some data collection. They're going to be looking at, census data and reporting data. They're going to do an economic analysis, so they'll look at the housing costs. They'll look at what employers are paying. So they'll do some generic information throughout the valley. They'll also look at housing stocks along the 260 corridor, they said. So if you look through the proposal, they're going to look at least through part of Cottonwood, part of the county, and of course an in-depth study of Sedona, including rentals, rent, vacancies, costs, short-term, long-term rentals, the cost of land and housing, projected builds, so projected developments that are in the pipeline. They'll look at all of that in the general area around Sedona. They'll also do a projection on 5 and 10 years out on what the need will be for housing, so the employer growth. And then they will look at Sedona issues for housing, which I believe will be somewhat different than the issues for Cottonwood. But they're going to do a study of that, and then, of course, they will produce a 5-year study. So that's what we would get if we didn't pay anything, so we'll get a little information. What's not included, or what we will get with the extra expanded service would be an online survey of Cottonwood employees. So they'll reach out to employers and use the Chamber of Commerce and, of course, city staff to help get the word out, to get employees that work inside the Cottonwood city limits to respond to a survey that kind of basically asks questions about where they live, where do they want to live, how much are they currently paying, so get a need of housing for our residents. And then they will also do some interviews to employers to find about future growth, expansion possibilities, as they do a projection. They'll also look at our policies, council zoning and planning. They'll look at our housing incentives, any programs that the city has. They will look at that. They will also identify anything that they don't think works or helps. They will identify things that they believe are barriers. So maybe our zoning isn't productive to high-density apartments. So they'll look at all that. Again, they'll identify Cottonwood-focused issues. And then, of course, the Verde Valley 5-year action plan, which will an in-depth look at the whole federal policies, federal programs, federal funding, federal grants. They'll consider housing authorities or other ways of solving or at least addressing these issues that I think will be more specific and more helpful to Cottonwood. So I wanted to mention that Vivi Rio has agreed to step up and partner with us on this, and they are working. If we move forward with this $40,000 is the total cost of the extra. If we move forward with that and Cottonwood takes the lead, the reason I've asked for up to $20,000 is because I don't know how much of it we need to pay, and I don't know how much the other communities, the county, and private people will pay. So I wanted to see where the council was on this issue. I don't have any line item in the budget, and so this would come out of undesignated reserves. But the idea is, if we move forward with this, Vivi Rio will take the lead and reach out to other groups. I just was speaking with her this evening, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but she's made some contacts, and they've agreed to start matching what we match and work through this. And then we think we can get to the $40,000 to have them do the Verde Valley. But I do appreciate Vivi Rio doing that. And they're not just government agencies, but private agencies. And if not to help fund this directly, but help facilitate the study through the employer sectors. Again, I'm asking for a max. If you're not comfortable with that max, I'll take anything the council's willing to dedicate to this. I just... over the last week or two, it's really hit home, and I was talking to our city attorney the other day. I received a phone call from a father who lives in Oregon about a grown adult son who lives in our community, and he was talking about the hardship he has and the reason he is where he is, and being taken advantage of by some landlords in the situation. We have a tight housing market, and it creates other issues throughout our community as far as homelessness, as far as not the greatest houses in some of our neighborhoods, because those are still rentable. You know, this gentleman for a shack was paying $1,000 a month, and his dad just couldn't believe it, but he's charging it because he can get it. You know, so I'm not mad at a businessman who's making, you know, who's bringing in revenue through our system, but I just would like to see what we can do, and I don't have all the answers in this case, but I believe that this, having a good, flat understanding of where we are and having these consultants evaluate what we're currently doing and then making recommendations on what we can be doing. We could not pay for this study ourselves. If they were just looking at Cottonwood, it would be a lot more than $20,000. So it's an opportunity that I appreciate Sedona taking the lead on the funding on this, and then I'm hoping that we can participate.
Right.
And with that, I'll take questions.
Very good. Council, do we have any questions for?
I do. Now, we have a representative here from the,
No, one of the things, if Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, one of the things is I'm trying to get a jump start. I'm trying to start this process. A lot of the other managers and people are going back to their councils and checking with them. So I'm trying to take the lead on this and get us going. I'm excited that Mary from VV Rio has also done the same, and she's already done some outreach to see what other people will do.
I mean, I know the problem, and I know it exists, and I'm in the trenches on that every day.
Yes, you
deal
are.
with it constantly, rentals and purchases, and I can't find people houses, and I get it, and I know what keeps the prices up. We have people coming in from out of state that can afford to pay more than the average worker here. It's a matter of economics. I mean, I would love to hear from somebody that does this and what a survey like this has been able to do. I mean, I understand the reason behind the survey. It's just, are we going to spend this money and then we're going to find out what we pretty much already know? And how, I'd just like to hear an example from somebody on a similar area that has done this study and how it might have helped them jump over that curb and actually benefit from their.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact answer for that, but there are some things that we've been exploring, including a housing authority, and this consultant will recommend whether that's a viable solution for us. So NACOG is one of our partners, and they actually are poised to be our funding agent. We believe we might even be able to set it up through them and work with them. We have also considered taking some of the NACOG grants that come by every 2 or 3 years, whenever that program is, and maybe we take some of the money off that and dedicate it to a separate loan reimbursement, a down payment reimbursement grant, not a loan. So there are options out there. Justin came from, who's the city manager of Sedona, came from Colorado, where they put a regional housing authority together that worked pretty good. Tracy from Clarkdale did something similar in Texas. So this problem has been addressed in other areas, and having I've heard very great things about this firm. Having a firm of this magnitude come in and make those recommendations for us, I think will help get the ball rolling and enable us to help we'll have something to point to when we go to NACOG, and because we all feel it, we all live it, but to have the data in a presentable format allows us to ask for grants in a much more educated way and a much more defensible way.
It's a good answer there.
I'll speak a little bit, because Justin Clifton from Sedona, the city manager, did speak at length about his experience up in Delta County, where they did form a housing authority. So he was there from its inception all the way through, and did see some. I don't know, Delta County is different than Yavapai County in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways it's very similar with their housing shortage and workforce and everything else that they deal with. So it was encouraging to hear that they were actually able to move the needle at least. But I agree with you. I think the problem is it can seem overwhelming and
It is. I mean, the only thing I see us being able to do, and I might be proven wrong by a study that comes out and somebody that's more knowledgeable with that, is increased density, which certainly helps the economics and provides incentives for builders to come in and build a housing they can sell for less. Of course, then you get pushback from the non-development types by doing that. So I agree, it's difficult.
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask, also answer Councilmember Matthews, with the increased density, it still has to pencil out for the developers.
Yes.
So that's where other incentives might come in. The state, I went to a meeting not too long ago, and they used to have a program that was the down payment grant where it had to be repaid that helped people. So instead of working on the developer side, they worked on making it more affordable for people able to get into their first home or other homes. So yes, it can be increased density, but to get it to pencil out, the price goes up, so we're still going to need something to get them into that first house or first apartment to make it affordable. So that's where the right balance and the right approach is going to be important. And again, I can't promise you 100% that, that we're going to have a golden, answer at the end of this, but I think it's a step.
And I think we're talking about, and excuse me if I'm wrong, two things that should be separate but are related, and we're kind of combining them. We were talking about the study and the request for the funding, but then we've also heard some discussion about the Housing Authority. I am all on board for the Housing Authority. I have appreciated Vivi Rio's efforts to discuss the housing needs in the city of Sedona, also Mayor Linsky and our city manager for keeping Cottonwood in the loop. I think addressing the housing concerns regionally makes sense. It makes for much better planning, and I completely support what I know of the proposed housing authority. The study and the actual request tonight, to me, I think is a separate thing that is related, and that is, are we willing to pay, as the city of Cottonwood, willing to pay some funds to be a part of this study that the city of Sedona and other partners such as Vivi Rio are moving forward. My concern, and I did have a very good conversation with our city manager, is what is the value to the city of Cottonwood? What are we actually getting? And our city manager used a very good term. He's not a fan of, quote unquote, studies on a shelf. So we don't want to pay money and then 5 years later get a study that one is either dated or it's information that we all knew. So Mike, I'm not quite there as far as the value with the amount, the up to amount from what the materials are in the packet. So I do echo Councilmember Matthews. I'm not saying that I don't support the study. I think the data is good. But right now, as far as the full up to 20, that's a stretch for me with the value for Cottonwood as it's been presented with the information in the packet. I could support something lower, such as 5,000 or even up to maybe 7,500, something that I think the value might be clear. We heard some information about zoning concerns that maybe developers might have, density, analysis, et cetera. That seems more in line with the value from the information. Now, I also had a question about timing. Do we have to have a decision now? Can we wrap this in as part of the budget discussions so that it would be something we're able to discuss and prioritize, or are our feet to the flame, so to speak?
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, all good questions. I'll start with the last question first. I think that we missed the boat if we wait till the budget cycle. They're going to start that process soon. As a matter of fact, they've already started working on the Sedona items. We'd like to be at the table to help make sure answer the questions that the program they put together works for Cottonwood. I love Sedona, but we're different than Sedona. And so I want to make sure we're at the table. And right now we're not at the table. So when we talk about ROI, return on investment, those are all great comments, but I think getting at the table at this point is critical. We talked about a housing authority. We talked about zoning. There are loan programs. There's many programs that this consultant would help lead us. I don't want us to start investing NACOG money or other dollars on the wrong program. So one of the ROIs on this is helping us prioritize what will have the biggest and quickest impact, and then what will have a more long-term impact. As you know, our planning and zoning team has been working hard. They have a couple drafts into me for some tiny home ordinances. They have some other things for me. And so is that really the right solution for our area? And I think this study would help identify that, because Sedona solutions are going to be different than ours. They have a couple tiny home programs up there near their schools that has worked well. Is that what's going to work for us? So what we're getting for $20,000, I think, would cost us $80,000 if we were doing it on our own. It's to bring in a consultant of this magnitude and have the people on the program that they're going to have. we wouldn't be able to do, I mean, I would have a hard time telling you that 80,000 is a good number to spend. I wouldn't, that probably wouldn't fly. But having this amount, and whatever council decides, that's the number I'll go back and start negotiating with. I just wanted enough room to make sure this happens. I think, in my personal opinion, from what, and I haven't been here as long as any of you, but in the short time that I've been here, housing, stormwater, Robert's in the back, stormwater and housing are probably the two biggest issues that I deal with on a regular basis that I have little impact on. Stormwater, we're working long-term, a lot of partners, but housing, it's capitalism. Councilmember Matthews was very correct on that. So what can we do as a council or as a city to help incentivize either builders to build or help people afford housing? We're ready to grow. As I said, the CAO of the hospital, Mr. Haas, 30 people he would hire right now if he could. And I think housing is important. I think this helps us get there. I think the ROI is a long-term investment. We won't have this opportunity again at this price in a very long time.
So then a follow-up question to that is, do we have anybody committed yet to kick in on that $40,000, like the hospital?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, great question. We did not ask the hospital today. I missed an opportunity. I apologize. But Mary, I'm trying to keep you out of the fray, but do you mind stepping up and talking about possible other commitments from
Mr.
other
Quinn,
organizations?
would you mind?
No,
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here this evening.
thank you. Mary Shaquin with Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization. I've been talking with other partners. I do not, very honestly, have formal commitments. I'll be very honest, what the city of Cottonwood does tonight will have a real impact on some of the others. I mean, the other conversation I had this afternoon was with Supervisor Garrison's office and what the Board of Supervisors could be willing to do. I already do have commitments from private entities because VV Rio thinks it's really important that this be a public-private partnership. I've talked with Ron about the fact of if you make a commitment, my hope would be that I or VV Rio would be able to secure enough other partnerships that it wouldn't be at the extent of your commitment. I don't know what they all are yet because truthfully, I think where we move forward can have a lot to do with what the city of Cottonwood does. Because you know who the players are in the Verde Valley, very honestly. And Cottonwood, I think, needs to be a big player in the study and how it happens. I will say the other thing that I spoke with Brandy at Supervisor Garrison's office this afternoon, and one of the things that also struck me at a county level is the study puts us in a position of identifying what we want in the Verde Valley. There's a competition right now of developers wanting to come in because they see this as the cash cow. And it may not be the right solution. And I think what the study will also do is help us design what we want to look like, what we need, and then we have the leverage of going out to saying to developers and others, this is what we want our home, our land here to look like. So I think that plays into it as well. So like I said, I've already got commitments, you know, so I'm trying to pull it all together. And Supervisor Garrison, after the Patel hearing tomorrow is when I'm going to be meeting with them, but they've got some rezoning related to the village they're dealing with tomorrow.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Shaquin? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I know this is, I think it's moving somewhat fast, which is unusual given government, but it's been on our radar for years. I mean, it's come up at almost every strategic planning retreat that I can recall. And I think we're really fortunate to have Justin Clifton from Sedona, who has a tremendous amount of experience and knows how to, and has the financial backing of
Correct.
Sedona to actually take the lead on this. And I think we're really fortunate because if we were all to try to garner support community-wide without somebody taking the lead, I think we'd be years behind on this. And so I appreciate the Sedonas driving the train on this. It's unfortunate we didn't budget any money for it. Again, it came up in our last retreat, but we didn't actually set any money aside. But I feel like the $20,000 is a great benefit for a study that we would have to pay for on our own. And I think if we do take the lead, and I'm not saying $20,000 is the number, but I think if we take the lead, on helping fund this study, it will become a much more regional affair, which is really what it needs to be effective. I think we have an opportunity to help take the lead on that as well and garner support Verde Valley wide because it's important to have a lot of eyes on this problem. And I think we're getting tremendous value given that Sedona's footing the majority of the bill.
I would agree. I would also agree with the Vice Mayor that 20,000 paying for half when it involves the whole Verde Valley seems like a pretty large pull for us. On the other side of the coin, I think it's a very necessary and needed operation, research and study. From what we keep reading about what's going on around Cornville with the new developments that are trying to go in there and in Beaver Creek, it's only a matter of time before we're going to end up with who knows what if we don't get involved and design what we want to have. And I understand both sides of the coin in Cornville and in Beaver Creek. I want my rural neighborhood, and somebody else wants a house to live in. Somewhere we have to draw a line. So I would say I would be willing to approve up to 20,000, but if we're going to do 20,000, I think we should get 70% of whatever comes out of this. And the other entities should get 30% because we're going to be pulling the load. But I don't know how anybody else would feel.
I'm not going to make a motion, I'll ask a question. If we kicked in up to $10,000, could you go out there and push people with that and raise the rest of the funds, you think?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, I'll take whatever you guys can give me, and then we will go forward and get what we can. If I have to go into private negotiations with a consultant and they do just a little extra for Cottonwood, I'll do what I can. Again, I think the Verde Valley is important as a whole in this approach on the housing. We affect each other. One of the things that I also like to say is I'd like to live where I work and work where I live in the same community. And so if this helps us make that more possible for more people, I can, if you give me up to 20, I'll make this commitment to you. I won't spend a dime I don't have to. But if you only want to give 10, I'll take 10 and we'll move forward and get as much other money as we can.
I think as soon as we commit 10 up to, we're kind of on public record, we're kind
It's
of
not
committing to that 20. I think 10 is still a little bit high. It's probably something I could probably agree with. I'm still stuck on the 20. This is not to say that housing is not a priority of mine and something that I, want to make sure we're focusing on and not just talking about. It's just, again, for a study where, again, for all the reasons we've said earlier, I just can't get to the 20. But.
And I'm in a similar place as you, Vice Mayor. I think this is a really important project and we need to do it. And I think the data will not only help us determine how we want to grow going forward, but it could also help in other areas. And having worked with homeless and now in low-income housing, I could see how the data from this could help in those other areas as well. So, but I'm also stuck on the 20, and the number that feels okay to me would be 10. I think I could be on board with 10, knowing that there's so many other partners out there that can contribute to get up to the 40. I think that if we did 10, they could come up with the rest.
I think we all want the same goal. We all agree that that's necessary. We're just not so sure of the value of this. I know there's some value. I like the idea of using as leverage for grant money that we can use to do something with it. I get it. I mean, it would do nothing but help my business. If
Not
we
a-
were to
not a
get
gold mine,
affordable
sir.
housing, I have people waiting in line for houses, but
Mr. Mayor, if I could help with this, if you wanted to authorize 10,000 and give me permission to come back, if me and Mary can't get to the 40. I'd hate to get to 35 or 30 and not be able to finish it off, knowing that we have several partners are much smaller than us, but I'd be, if that would at least allow me, you wouldn't ask why I'm coming back if I have to come back again and ask, but if you could do that in the motion, that would be helpful for me.
It seems like a reasonable compromise.
And I
would
would be
agree with
comfortable with
that.
that.
I will say, the last time we did a housing assessment in Cottonwood was back in '05. Do you remember, Steve? It was a long time ago.
It's that long ago.
Yeah, it was at least 15-some years ago. And that assessment it was just data. It didn't have any recommendations or anything. And it certainly wasn't a regional or collective study. It was focused more on Cottonwood specifically. So long overdue. I feel like we'll get a lot of value out of this. So how about a motion?
I'll make the motion then. So I move to authorize an expenditure of undesignated reserve funds in an amount not to exceed $10,000 to fund Cottonwood's portion of the proposed expansion of a housing needs assessment study being conducted by Elliott D. Pollock and Company for the city of Sedona.
Second.
Did you want to add a little something in there about?
If you'd like, I'll add with the caveat that you may come back and ask for more if necessary.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Matthews made the motion and Councilmember Hulse seconded it. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hulse,
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
Yes.
Councilmember Naren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Linsky,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, next on the agenda is presentation, discussion, and possible adoption of a proposed master site plan for Riverfront Park. Evening.
Mayor, Council, Hezekiah Allen with the Cottonwood Parks Recreation Department. Thanks for your time this evening. Just for an overview, I'm going to do a little short introduction, and then Brian with Norris Design will take over and go through the process on how we got to your proposed master site plan for Riverfront Park. This was a year-long process, and staff really made it a priority to go through the citizen engagement process, to garner as much information as we could from the community, Verde Valley citizens for this park. We emphasize that this is not our design, it's the community's design, where staff got involved in the designers is when there were competing interests and trying to balance the stakeholders. What you see, if we can hit the lights, just an overview of our system. So what's highlighted in green are our current parks. Roughly about 100 acres. I'll pass around, this is from the league, and if you flip through there, it kind of highlights some parks throughout some different communities and their flagships. Many have said that parks are the heart of a community, and I think we can all agree to that. One exercise I think it'd be interesting to do is maybe for the public and the council, while Brian's going through this process, think back to when you were a child and your memories and the memories that impacted you, and I would imagine a lot of them took place in a park. How we got to this process, just so the council is aware, we were awarded grant money from state parks, around $107,000. And so we had a trails master plan, which was a big overview. But to go from master plan to actually boots on the ground construction, you got to do design work. So we already have dollars funded for design work, and we were able to talk to Brian with Norris to include master planning of Riverfront Park. They had already been in the area, they had a lot of expertise in the area, so they came on board and we were able to keep it within budget. The vision. So what we've heard from council, strategic plans, initiatives, for example, develop and maintain outdoor recreation in a manner that promotes economic growth, is that we've got great facilities. We've got a wonderful rec center, great outdoor pool. But when you look at our outdoor spaces, when you look at our trails, that's where the next phase is. And that's what we've heard from council. So in your packets, they were attached pictures of our current park system. So we're just going to scroll through those really quick so you can see where our current status is of our facilities. And just to emphasize the difference, community development block grant funds, we're going to be doing a master plan, which will be parks, recreation, open space, and wayfinding for the entire community. This is a master site plan for just Riverfront Park, which, if adopted tonight, will be wrapped into the master plan for the community. So with that, I will introduce Brian with Norris Design, if you don't have any questions for me.
Any questions at this time for Hezekiah Allen?
Not right now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Brian Sager. I'm with Norris Design. We're a landscape architecture and planning firm. We've had the pleasure to work with Hezekiah and your team for the last 12 months approximately, developing the master plan for the Riverfront Park, which we're here to present and discuss tonight. It's maybe fair to call it, instead of a master plan, it might be more of a vision plan, because we're just really trying to capture the community's vision and garner input. This is a stakeholder-driven process. A lot of what we did was listen and take some of the priorities that were expressed by the community and develop this site plan that really features a lot of the expressed interest of the community. I'll walk you through the process a little bit. So the presentation begins with this, and then we end with this. And when we get back to the ending, then we'll go through in detail what the site plan has. But so next one. Next. So as I mentioned, this was an outreach-based process. We had 5 meetings. Well, we had a kickoff meeting. We had 2 public meetings held at the wastewater treatment plant meeting room. And we had a stakeholder outreach meeting, which is customary for park design and development. The stakeholders are the ones who know the site well, and they have a lot of great information. The public are the ones who really express the values and the culture of the community and where to help drive and guide it. And then also there was a Verde News readers poll, which gathered approximately 1,500 interactions, and that was also very helpful with developing the priority list. Part of our first real quick overview of the public outreach meeting process was that in November we came before the public and we presented some case studies just to the public to say, here's a park of 20 acres and here's what Goodyear has done with theirs and here's what Denver has done with theirs. And that's to sort of establish a baseline of program and a baseline of vision for different communities in a pure community size site. And then the deliverable from that was this survey, which we asked all the participants to participate, leave their ideas, and rank some of the concepts that we had discussed. Next, we had program boards. So really, we wanted to come into the process to say, let's kind of remove all preconceived notions of what this could be. Let's just kind of think big and think long term and tell us what could happen in this park. And so we brought forward 4 boards like this in physical hard copy form, and we distributed stickers to the attendees, and they took their stickers and they applied green stickers to the ones that they liked. And if you keep going, and this is a result of one. You can see up here the riverfront beach element was gathering interest. However, public art was not getting that much interest. And so actually we were participating on the fly. We had a designer drawing pictures because people were saying, we need more restrooms, and we didn't have a picture of a restroom, so we made one. And then a lot of people liked that picture, so they went for it. But we had 4 different types of activities. There were community activities, active recreation, passive recreation, and like the park style activities. Here's another one, sports and recreation. You can really see how soccer fields was prominent. We also drew in lighted fields because we heard that a lot. This is just an unmarked up board showing you the Ecotourism and Children's Activities Board. We recognize the value of the Verde River and how strongly it impacts not only this site, but your entire community. And we really wanted to engage the river and have the river influence and continue to influence the recreational activities in the park. So that's sort of captured by the ecotourism idea, where you've got hiking trails, you've got guided nature, wildlife. So this was the board that expressed that. And from that board, this is the river walk. We drew it in. That was an element of high interest here. So then bike paths, another point of interest. Somebody had a really wonderful idea in our public meeting, was to have a bike path for kids that would be a short but paved bike path where children could ride and stay in sight of the other parent who is perhaps managing a toddler on a playground, and they've got a 7-year-old learning to ride a bike. And so this notion gathered a lot of interest, and so we included it in the park. So these are the top results. We captured all the results down at the bottom. We got 128 dots, and the top vote getters are shown here in their priorities. So splash pad came in at number 1, and then we have bike paths, soccer fields, natural play structures, lighting, and then on down. And then, of course, the differences, it becomes more consistent at the bottom, where there's a lot of 7%ers showing up. But there was a lot of interest in both public pool, but also splash pads. So that kind of activity, people were talking about their experiences driving to other adjacent communities to use their splash pads, and they thought maybe this would be, that it attained the top result of that November meeting. Here it is in pie chart form, because that makes it more accurate. But you can see the proportion of splash pads relative to the rest of the results. This is the Verde News Readers Poll. And so in June, we kind of consolidated the results of that. There were 2,700 votes here in this one. There were, they didn't control the voting, so there was some multiple voting, so we just took it as it is. Number 1, again, splash pad. And then you've got walking and jogging trails, roller skating, disc golf, multi-use green areas, and soccer fields came in the top 10. Children's bike track, again, that was an element we discussed. Workout, sand volleyball, and then rounding out the top 10 is softball. So those are 2 different data points. These are some of the verbal comments we got. We recorded all of the verbal comments we got, but it's kind of interesting because I just wanted to highlight items 13 and 14. The numbers are meaningless. They're just how we ordered them, because we ordered them as they came. But number 13 is, can we remove the pond? Number 14, I like the pond. So that's what you get when you do public outreach, right? So it's our job to sort of consolidate that and make something cogent out of it. So what's next? Go ahead. So where we ended up was this site plan. We've had, like I said, public meetings, and this site plan is an expression of the top. We made certain that the top 10 vote results program-wise are in this plan. We can go through them if you want in detail, but suffice to say, those top 10 are in here. There are some physical geographic limitations that we're compelled to honor, primarily the floodplain, which basically cuts across the site here. Everything north of this line is in the floodplain. Okay, I'll do it over here. In fact, this area of the site next to the wastewater treatment plant, that area of the site is the only area that's not, subject to flooding. Including this parking lot. So this corner right here is. And so we heard a lot of interest in soccer fields, and right now we're showing 3 full-size soccer fields and 3 smaller soccer fields. We heard a lot of interest in the community gardens, which are right now in this site here, so they're kind of been consolidated up here. We're showing vehicular access to those gardens off 10th Street. We heard a lot of interest in disc golf, so this maintains the disc golf course through here, and it also shows an enhanced vegetated approach to the Verde River Valley. It would be great to increase, the passive recreation opportunities of birding through embellished tree cover and tree planting. We show an unmarked, unstructured turf field. This could be event space. It could also be for open play. It could be for picnics. That's up against this parking access. There is a playground shown here. And then in this zone, there's a restroom with some variety of play fields. I apologize, Mr. Horton. I'll show you over here as well. So these are courts. These are sport courts. And on our last public meeting, we heard a lot of interest to maintain the roller hockey rink. And so this concept shows that roller hockey rink existing and to remain. We do maintain these ball field clover leaves exist, and they will remain in this plan, this vision plan. Moving through, we're showing the dog park. It moved from this location over to here. So the dog park is now shown here with parking access. And then we are showing, and this is kind of a big move that this shows, is a roadway. This is an internal circulator that comes across. So this internal circulator, you know that it stops right there now, and we're proposing in this vision plan that it come all the way through. And this is driven from one of the stakeholders in the meeting was public safety. We're saying we like to be able to, have greater access and to patrol these spaces, and it's helpful to us to be able to drive through on a loop. And if we feel like we need to see the back of the park, we want to get there. So that roadway is an effort to, achieve not only access for public safety, but also access to the parking and as well as for the public in general. And then the last thing to really zone in on is this zone here. This is where we're showing the splash pad because it is out of the flood zone, and we're also showing a substantial play element here. It's out of the floodplain, so it would be safe. The splash pad would, and the playground would have the bike path around it. The little beginner's bike path would go around it. There would be some parking here. Also, we're showing parking underneath the existing photovoltaic panels next to the water treatment plant. So in a nutshell, we're dealing with the flood zone. We're dealing with the existing ball fields. They are a good resource, and so they were initially and still remain in place. And around there, we're looking at how to add these top 10 programs, as well as how to, if an object is in the park now, we want it to remain in the park because that's an expression that it's already valuable to your community, so it should remain. So in some cases they're moved, but in all cases they're there. Is there anything else you want to touch on? I appreciate your attention. I'd love to entertain questions.
Great. Do we have any questions for Brian?
I've got one, but first I'll make a comment, and you guys have done a lot of work on this and done a very good job. I was at one of those early sticker parties, which I really, really, really like and appreciate the way you brought the community in and made them stakeholders. What do you want? I mean, that's who this is for. So I'm really impressed with that. I really like to see, I love the involvement that went into that with the community. And really, the only thing I look at here, can you just elaborate on the Learning Center a little bit? What does that look like? What is that?
On the Learning Center?
Uh-huh.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So the concept here is that there is a potential there to talk about water use, to talk about how water is used. So this site is right next to the wastewater treatment plant. And so it's an opportunity, it would be a building.
Yeah, see, I've got a problem with that.
Well, it would, we could, it could be even an open air structure, it could be a building. The idea is to educate, have an educational opportunity on how water is used. So there could be information.
I love everything on there,
graphics.
but when there's a learning center, we just built onto a sewer plant recently and sits there pretty much unused a lot of the time. I just don't ever see a need for it. I mean, I'm just a little disappointed that actually squeaked in there and got there. That's all, but I mean, I feel very strongly about that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Matthews, if I can add, these are preliminary plans, and before we built a learning center, we'd come back to council and the community. We have some great partners that are working on education. Tom Whitmer back there, our utilities director. We have partnerships. You guys just approved the contract to build the learning center or the hands-on water facility over at the old firehouse. We would work with all of our friends of the river. We would work with the Conservancy. We would work with people that are educating. So we would come back with an actual design that if you guys wanted to move forward with that portion of it, it's wide open. The possibilities are endless. On what it ends up looking like.
I realize it's a wish list. I know some people think we're going to break ground next week, but
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that Councilmember Matthews, great point. There is no money budgeted this year for this, and as it currently stands, I do not plan. It's not a priority for next year's budget. I know that HES will be looking for grants through the state park system, and we will figure out what we can do with the money that becomes available. But there's currently nothing in the near future out of city general fund dollars.
okay, thank you. That aside, really phenomenal. Thank you.
And I think that Brian from Norris Design really summed it up when you called it a vision plan. I think it really is that. And you did a great job at getting the community together and putting out the surveys and all that. So I think it's a robust effort to find out what the community wants. Of course, it's our job as council to find out what the community can afford, and that'll be the hard thing as we move forward. And there are parts of this that I'm really excited about. There are parts that I think could be improved, and I think as we work holistically on all the other parks and how everything kind of ties in together, this design may get changed, and depending on funding availability, it may also change as well. But I think it's an excellent vision guide for us moving forward. So you did good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can't get from A to Z without a roadmap.
And money.
Good point.
But I agree. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Thanks.
It looks like we have many members of the public in this evening who may want to address the council. Would it be acceptable if we open this up to the public?
Sure.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address the council on this item? You're under no obligation to do so, but you have an opportunity now to say thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, hearing none. We'll close the floor, but thank you all for being here this evening. All right.
I'll
Move
make
to
a
pay the
motion.
claims and adjustments?
Pardon?
Or do we have to make a motion? Was there a motion item for that?
we do need a
Whoops.
motion.
There is.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes.
I was jumping ahead.
Yes, I appreciate your excitement looking at the clock. But I do need one more motion, or at least that motion for us tonight.
I'd like to make a motion.
Holst is paying attention, so
Yes.
let's follow his lead.
I move to adopt the proposed Riverfront Park Master Site Plan.
I'll second what he said.
Councilmember Holst made the motion, the Vice Mayor seconded. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hulse,
Yes?
Councilmember Matthews,
Yes.
Councilmember Naren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
and Mayor Linsky,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Okay, great, thank you.
Now.
Now do I get to move to pay the, okay, I move to pay the claims and
Well, we've got Fair
Second.
Festival.
All right, Vice Mayor made the motion.
What are we doing, number 3?
What's that? There's no number 3 online. Oh, you're on the consent agenda.
Oh,
You were paying attention for a second.
okay.
Sorry. So Vice Mayor made the motion, I think Councilmember Matthews seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll
Move to
we-
adjourn?
Great, second.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Naren made the motion, Holst seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned, thank you.
I'm sorry.